Okay, good morning everyone, and welcome to the strangest start of a class I've ever had at U of H, and that I don't know how many miles away, 3,500, 2,500 miles away. It's 5 p.m. where I am, and so I really appreciate your patience. I will tell you, I got to sit through just a fantastic presentation on some new things going on and networking that deal with more manufacturing and security that we will be able to make use of in class. So it's not once in a lifetime, but it's certainly once in a year. So they asked me, twist my arm, if I could possibly teach remotely for the first 2 weeks, and I told them, well, that's the only way I'm going to do it because I'm not canceling class. So that was our deal. So there's two halves to today's lecture. I am going to experiment with pre-recording some of it, and so some of what you'll need is going to be out on YouTube, and I need to make sure I share that channel with you before we leave here today. But what I'm going to cover live with you guys today is kind of the structure of the class, how things are going to work. We're going to walk through where things are, how you find things, so you'll have your arms all the way around this. I've told the two TAs that we've got, who we'll talk about later, to really be present and available and helpful. And so to that end, near the end of the first hour, when it's time for us to kind of leave for the day, one of the TAs, Hassam, is going to join the WebEx. I'm going to introduce him, and if you already know you need some TA help, or if you want to set up a meeting with him, or whatever your need might be, you can do it. I don't anticipate much on day one, unless you're going to ask him, like, who is this crazy professor or something, and that's perfectly fair. The other thing you should know about the TAs is they're safe. So I've told them, scrub the name from any feedback, comments, complaints, congratulatory notes, whatever, pat on the back, whatever it might be. If you don't feel like bringing something to me, by all means bring it to them. They've both been my TAs, one of them for a couple of years, the other one for longer than that. And so I trust them. And they're your best advocates in trying to get through the class. So if you find a mistake or a problem, particularly like with the homework, for example, let them know immediately, and they'll usually hunt me down wherever I am, and we'll get it fixed right then. That happens all the time because there's a lot of new material every semester, and of course, because this field changes really rapidly. So I'd say, even though the textbook, the primary one that we're going to use, came out 2 years ago, we beta tested it at the University of Houston for the author in Massachusetts for his 7th edition. It's now 30% new material that's not in the textbook that I am going to deliver to you outside of it. So that's how fast the thing changes. So you are here for Computer Networks 4377, and I'll give you my phone number right up here up front. If you use WhatsApp, that's awesome. If you want to rather text, you can do that too. My plan somehow, boy, what a change in the last 5 years. It's unlimited data, text, and calls anywhere around the world, essentially, except for a very few countries. So don't ever worry about bothering me where I am or running up my text bill or anything like that. If you need to reach me, do so, and I'll be extra vigilant now that the class has begun. This is the U of H email I use, but most of the time, if you email me or I send something out to you guys, it's going to come from my Gmail address, because the U of H one is a forwarding only email address. So you can send stuff to it, but this is where it's going to go, kblinhou@gmail.com. And you're welcome to just use that one instead if you like. And again, this is being recorded, and after each lecture I'll upload material. We're going to use Blackboard, but really just for the assignments. It's also the way I make sure I have an easy way to email everyone, because they have an automated process each day that syncs up with whatever is in the registrar system. So if somebody joins late or drops or whatever, it adjusts. And so most of the emails will come through Blackboard. We'll also have some general announcements there on the Blackboard page. So I do need to get up the new link for the WebEx, for example, and put that up there. But pretty much everything else is going to be on Google Drive. And in this presentation today, I have links for most of those things. Lectures, as I mentioned, are recorded. They're streamed live, obviously, but they're also going to be stored on, and neither of these are true anymore. I took some student suggestions, and we're going to give it a shot putting this stuff on YouTube. It'll be, I think, in a hidden channel, but I'll give you guys the URL. We'll have 2 exams in the class, a midterm and a final, and the exams will be in person. So that means our first exam is going to be the day I get back on Monday, halfway through the class, 2 weeks from today. We'll cover the day before each exam, the material that's going to be on it, and you'll always have a weekend. We've managed to schedule it such you're going to have a weekend to study before each one of them. But other than that, it's going to be brutal. The class is going to be fast-paced, so we're going to cram a whole semester's worth of stuff into a month. And I will tell you from having taught in the summers before, the summer classes run much more smoothly. We cover a lot more material. We go deeper into that material, and that's essentially because of me, because I'm not distracted by 20 other things going on. We'll see how being away distracts me, but generally you get a better education, more for your money in the summer. But the flip side of that is every day it's like a marathon. You've got to do the homework when you get it. You've got to keep up with the class or it'll just crush you. There's no way to do it. We will have 10 homeworks. They consist of either textbook exercises, programming assignments, very basic pseudocode socket labs in Python 3. They give you most of the program. They ask you to fill a few things in that are geared just essentially to learning how to add code to a program that enables it to send and receive information to and from the internet. So the library of programming calls that we use, the function calls are part of what's called a socket library, and so we'll get experience in this class doing some of that. I'm very well aware there's not a 4th hour. This is a 3-hour class, so we do not have a separate lab section that you attend. I am actually lobbying the department to add one because I think we need it. So it'll be a light touch on the lab stuff, and it will just be part of your homework. So I'll back off on a problem or two if I'm going to give you a little bit of a socket lab. And then the other type of lab that we'll have are ones that are just super fun, and they use a program called Wireshark. You can download that, or you can use a web-based alternative to Wireshark called CloudShark. Either one of them should work, and they're both intended to allow you to sniff packets, to watch packets on the network, collect copies of them, and then go through them and study what's going on. So it's not quite a hacking tool, but it's absolutely an important tool for network surveillance and diagnosis. So we'll look at what packets actually look like when they get out onto the internet. And so I want to just make sure you know that the syllabus was updated just in the last day or so. We are still going to use this textbook as our primary textbook, but I've swapped the secondary book. There are 3 texts that are valuable in this type of curriculum. This is the one that I've used for the longest time. And in past semesters, I've always hedged my bets by telling people, well, there is a 6th edition, and it's pretty darn close, and if you want to get that one instead, it's okay. I'll cover the material that are in the chapters that are new for the 7th edition, but we're actually going to have homeworks and work on those chapters this time. So my recommendation is you try to track down a 7th edition. It's been out for a couple of years, so it should be available, used. If somebody finds a PDF of it, let me know. I'm not going to put that in writing, but to my knowledge, it doesn't exist. The additional chapters in the book are beyond the core, and so we're going to start by covering the core 5, and then we'll have chapters on network security, deeper on multimedia. We'll go into some of that in earlier chapters, and then we're going to spend quite a bit of time on wireless and mobile networks. You'll find in the very first content lecture, which I've already recorded, I've already uploaded, and it's going to be part of your assignment, is to watch the second hour of class as a pre-recorded session. We go significantly into how wireless spectrum, the frequencies that we use to carry wireless signals, how those are actually made available to people. And the seminar that I'm in here in Aachen, Germany, at what the other faculty at U of H tell me that know this area is one of the very best in Europe, which makes me feel good. We spent some time today talking about the plans for 5G wireless. And in the US, Qualcomm just did a test recently, and the results were just spectacular. 7 to 8 times the bandwidth on average for every user connected to a cell tower running 5G instead of LTE 4G. So if that's true, then expect web pages to load 7 to 8 times faster, for example. It also is going to drive higher bandwidth content. So it'll, that's the ebb and flow of this. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and I'm going to try to add some new material on 5G to what we've got already. Our second book, the one that I've sort of changed, is one by Alberto Leon Garcia and Indra Wijaja, and this textbook is more of a physics EE text for communications. You'll notice even the title suggests communication networks instead of networking. This is dealing more with the physics, and we're going to draw from chapter 3. We'll pretty much go through the entire chapter. It'll take 4 hours of lecture, so 2 days, and we'll learn essentially how digital signals are encoded on analog networks. And despite the fact that we've had lots of revolutions in networks and we've switched from analog to digital for preserving copies of film and photos and audio, everything is still sent on things that have been around for 1 million years, vibrating atoms and shining lights. And so at its core, everything is still analog. And so we're going to really emphasize that, because that's a sort of a mental barrier for a lot of people. We're not sending ones and zeros. We say we are. We're not. We're oscillating sine waves with electrical charges for electrons, or we're encoding things in photons with light waves, if you will. So we're going to get a chance to see a little bit of that. And then the real point of Chapter 3 is to help us understand, if we know we're going to send something over a network that's prone to errors, particularly wireless networks, but it exists on wired networks as well, how do we change how we're going to put ones and zeros on the wire to account for that? And that's an important strategy as a computer scientist that we can observe and appreciate, because it's essentially data structures. So I put a link in. The PDF of this file that has this link is out on the Google Drive. You're going to see the link for that here in a minute. And I think I also included it in the syllabus. But this book is, I don't know, like all textbooks in computer science, $200, $150. I mean, just pick a number. But there's a bunch of them for around $18 on the used book sites, and so that's one of the used book sites. The text that in the first version of the syllabus I had indicated was our second textbook. I've sort of demoted it to supplemental text. I don't plan on going through material in this book unless you guys ask questions about something and I need some more backup material. But this book is freely available, and here's the URL from the author's website. This isn't a site where you're going to be surreptitiously downloading it. And Douglas Comer has been around since the beginning. I took a class from him, I'm going to really date myself, 1986, at the very first Interop conference at the Santa Clara County Convention Center. And it was fascinating because he had just written a book on the internet, first edition. Addison Wesley, I recall, was the publisher, and the internet was really beginning to take off and it wasn't commercial, wouldn't be commercial for another 15 years maybe, but academically it was of great interest and people were seeing things they could do. This was well before the World Wide Web or anything like that. But 1,200 people showed up at this conference and attended for 2 days out of the week. You could optionally attend Douglas Comer's class all day, 2 days. So you paid $1,000, $1,200, something like that for it. He handed out a copy of his textbook, which I figured probably cost him, $25 or something like that. And I'm looking around doing the math on this. That's like $1 million presentation. So I'm like, there may be a business, there may be a job here in this field of computer networks. So that's kind of how it all began. He's on the 5th edition now of this other textbook, and that one's a good alternative if you need a different explanation for things. We'll use Google Drive. We're going to use WebEx to record things. Here I got it right. We will use YouTube to archive our recordings, and then Blackboard basically for the formal homework assignments. I have a bad habit. When I send you the homework assignment, I will email you telling you so. So don't ask me, don't send me emails asking, have you released it yet? Is it out there yet? I looked and I can't find it. You don't need to do that. You'll know when I've released the homeworks because I will send you an email via Blackboard to the email address that you've got registered as the official one with the registrar at U of H. So you can change that email if you want, but that's the list that I'm using. You know the URL for WebEx already. If you have trouble with audio, or let's say you're driving someday and you just want to tune in for audio, and you've got some need to use a real telephone call, you can just dial this number in California and enter this access code. The password is Red Nation, but on a phone, here's the numbers, so you don't have to try to figure out that R is on the 7 key and all of that stuff. And you're welcome to do that. I will tell you this tool, WebEx, is used hundreds of thousands of times a day around the world. It's a product that I've used probably half that number myself, it feels like sometimes. And it's one of quite a number of these. It's just as easily, we could have used Zoom or Adobe Connect or any of a dozen others, I'm sure. This one we're using because I'm very, very used to it. And so, and it's very inexpensive for me to get a commercial license that can handle a couple of hundred people if we need to. So you will spend, if you're in the IT industry, a lot of your time collaborating with people via tools like this. You'll get a lot of your learning via tools like this. And when you're in the real world, nobody's going to care if you're sitting at Starbucks doing it, or if you stay at home and you've got your slippers on and you're doing it. And I don't care either. You can be wherever you guys would like. We are, as a school, behind in making classes available online more. And so I've been doing this for years, usually in person as well. But wherever I am, wherever you are, we're going to go through this class. And it's exactly the same material. I'm using to draw, I'm using a tablet. It's the same one I'm using when I'm in a classroom. I'm using exactly the same laptop and camera, microphone and headset. I don't use a headset when I'm standing in class, but so it's not going to take anything away from you that we're doing this stuff remotely. What is a disadvantage is that because I will lose access to this building each day, 1 hour in, I'm going to pre-record the second hour every day. U of H is going to try to launch a formal online course, but I may be one of the first people to do it. The TA coming on at the end of the hour to sort of work with you and help you, that's a big missing component that he's got to help us all figure out. You've got to help him figure it out. You need to figure out if you're willing to ask a TA a question that way. Does that work for you? Are you willing to come off of mute and do it? Can you draw out what you want? The TA also will have office hours available in person if you'd rather come up to school. But since I'm not there, it seems shame to have you make the trek just for that. So some of you, I'm guessing, are remote to begin with. And so instead of making you drive in just for that, instead of class and that, we're going to make that easy on you guys. So I don't have the list URL in there, so let me go and grab that now. I didn't have that ironed out until just a little bit ago. So I'm going to pause for a second and go grab my list. And this is a little bit of a learning curve. I have uploaded tons of stuff in in the past, but it has been such a long time. Okay, here it is here. So let me see how I can most easily share this with you guys. I think what I'm going to do is do it like this. I'm going to forward this email from YouTube to all of you guys, and we'll just do it via email instead. So let's figure out here. And a little bit of it's going to be in Spanish, but just the part that says I've shared something, nothing else will be. All right, so here we go. I'm going to send it to all you guys, and if I did it right, you should have it in just a moment. Right now, there's one video up. It's the one that we're going to cover after I let you guys go here in a little bit. And then I will go back. Yeah, it looks like I just got the email, so I'm assuming all of you guys did as well. We're not going to open that right now, but that's the link that we'll use, and I'll add it back in here as well. Here's the URL for the Google Drive. I'd recommend you bookmark this because I don't have any idea how long tinyURL keeps URLs tiny before they throw them out. I did try to make it somewhat mnemonic so you can kind of maybe remember it, COSC 43C77 SU for summer 18. But the Google Drive will have all of our slides. It already has the ones I'm presenting today and the ones I used for the recording. Those chapters are already out there. We have some backup material already. We have an FCC allocation chart that you'll see discussed in the next lecture. And I have a master calendar that we're going to talk about here in a little bit as well. Okay, so homeworks, I will again always email you a notice. I may not email the homework itself as an attachment, but I will at least email. And we'll have a short turnaround time on email. So the normal rules of getting things in late is not going to really apply here. They are posted as assignments, and you will turn in your homeworks on Blackboard. Don't try to drop them into a homework folder on Google Drive. The solutions will be uploaded there the day that they're due. So in all of my other classes where it's stretched out over 15 weeks, we have leeway to extend homework deadlines on an individual basis. But because this is compact and we need it to end on time for the TAs as well, we also need to make sure we stay on top of the material. I also don't expect that you have 4 or 5 other classes like you do during the semester. So don't get into the habit of asking for extensions because the answer is going to be no if the TA started grading. Deadlines, like I say, are strict. That being said, if you have an exceptional circumstance, I want to hear about it. Right? So I'm not telling you, what I don't want you to do is take a 0 because you blow it off or give up. So if you know you got something coming up, drop me a line, let me know. Keep the TAs included. In fact, if you're going to let one of the 2 of us know, the TAs are the better ones to let know what's going on. Always email both of them a question. They're going to alternate grading homeworks. So one of them doesn't have 3 one week and the other 3 the next week. So Hassam may grade homework 1, and 2 days later, Zhang Gang will start grading homework 2, et cetera. And because we have Wireshark and Python-based socket labs as well as the traditional book homeworks, this is going to account for half of your score. The 2 exams will count for the other half. So how do you pass a course? Well, most people pass the network course without any extra effort, meaning anything like extra work I assign or something unusual like that, because it's a more advanced class and you guys are better students by this time. On where I usually run into trouble is with the classes that are at the beginning of the core curriculum for computer science. And in those cases, I give these following rules, but I'm going to give them to you guys as well. If you attend the class, if you review the recordings, whether it's live or after the fact, if you keep up with the homeworks, and I don't see zeros in 2 or 3 places on the homeworks for the semester, and you don't give the TAs white hair, if you don't if you're not a nightmare to them, you get the labs, which are part of the homeworks in. I don't care whether they're all right or mostly wrong, but as long as you're getting the stuff in, trying, working those problems, and you don't walk into the exam and leave half the exam blank because you have no idea how to do it, that's just the kiss of death. Don't do that. If you do all that, you will pass this class with a grade high enough to count on a computer science degree. So that's my commitment to you. You hang with me, and I'll hang with you. And the TAs are good about telling me where I'm screwing stuff up because nobody gets this problem. And I'll tell them, well, just yank it off the homework then. Just give everybody the points for that. Or if it's one that's foundational and we really need to do it, we'll spend some extra time the next lecture going over it in class and give people a chance to turn that one in late, for example. So work hard and you'll pass. I am not a professor that's going to try to trip you up or catch you 5 seconds late, or you did something in the wrong order, or you used the wrong constants, or it's a 5-part problem and you got the first part wrong, and so it's just an automatic 0. If the second and third and fourth and fifth parts depend on what you did on the first one and you get the first part wrong, and we can figure out how to use your answer on that first part to crank through the rest, and based on your wrong answers on the first part, the rest of it is right based on that, then you get the credit for most of the homework. Right? So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for you to learn processes, learn concepts, learn data structures, understand the fundamentals. I'm not so interested in knowing if you get exactly right every time. If you got 10 cars at a toll booth and they wait 12 seconds apiece and they travel at 68 miles an hour and there's 100 miles to the next toll booth, how long before the last one gets there? If you show me you know the formula, if you know how to convert things from bytes to bits, et cetera, but you mess up on a power of 10, or you do the math, you just plain old divide wrong, then you're not going to fail that problem. Right? So I'm looking for you to grasp the concepts. Prior experience, if you've written in C or Python or Java, do you have an environment you can write C code if you want? The programming assignments are light, and like I said, it's just pseudocode for the most part that you need to worry about. You're given most of the block, and you're just filling in some blanks. Then you'll be fine if you've done any of these. I'm curious, and we'll have a chance hopefully to talk, more live in the second half. But if you've programmed in sockets, you're going to find those to be a breeze. If you've even done things like messed around with your router at home or your Wi-Fi router, or figured out how to manipulate the IP settings on your computer or your phone, you're already part of the way to understanding some of the stuff that we're going to explain. So if that stuff has interested you already and you've got some experience, then you'll have even more fun with this. And most people enjoy sniffing packets because it's just a way of eavesdropping on what's going on. And depending on the type of computer you've got, you may be able to eavesdrop on other people's packets besides just your own. So there are 7 programming assignments in Python. They are here. I'll show you how we're going to assign those out. And if I'm crushing you guys and the TAs are like basically saying, hey, there's like people turning in late and stuff, we'll back off on things. But it is a competition, right? So if half the class is getting the stuff in on time, we're just going to keep on plowing ahead. So it's like the old joke, you don't have to run faster than the bear, you just have to run faster than the slowest other person in the group. Wireshark is the program I mentioned that can surveil what's going on with networks, and there are 11 or 12 really Wireshark labs. There's an intro lab that makes it number 12. We're not going to do a couple of them. We won't do IPv6, and there may be 2 that we combine. I think we're going to combine these 2 into one lab, and I think we're going to do the intro and HTTP into one lab. So you'll have both of these to do as we walk out the door today, do in a couple of days. So you'll want to hop right on this stuff. Throughout the book, there are end-of-chapter exercises that are listed. Here's a screen snapshot of what that is. I will use them in class. I will assign some of these as homework problems, and I guarantee you will see some of the images from these on the exams. So one of these simulates windowing, and we'll get to that later in the semester, but later in the month. And there's an animation tool on this page that will let you input things or try dropping packets, and it graphically shows you what's going on. The little packets are moving around, and that's something that I would take a screen snapshot of. I'll run one, put it on the test, and then ask you, what's happening in this diagram? Explain to me what just took place. What's going to happen when the third packet arrives back at the sender? Is it going to proceed with sending the fourth, or is it going to wait? Or what? So I'll arm you with the ability to answer those questions in spades, and you'll have the tools to play with. but that's a good sheet to bookmark as well as something for the class. And if I am a nice guy like I try to be, I may have actually already dropped the link in there. It doesn't look like I did, so I'll need to make sure I get that in there as well. So you'll have it on the Google Drive as well. Here's a master calendar. This thing is intimidating, and it's in Google Spreadsheets. So I don't think you have the ability to edit this, but for God's sake, don't. Please be careful with this spreadsheet. And if you feel like messing around with it or doing something, download a copy, export a copy to Excel, or make a copy for yourself. And if you don't know how to do it, you're aiming to mess it up. So what you're really hearing here is my fear that I really don't consider myself an expert at Google Docs, but I'm moving as fast as I can everything over to Google's tools because I just can't take the bugs in Microsoft's tools the last year or so. I finally went out and looked, and boy, am I not alone. The people are just howling. So I'm going to try and put this stuff up for you. It's a little easier if you don't have Excel anyway. So let me walk you through a little bit about what's in this sheet. And I think the better way to do that is going to be for me to share my application and show you what the sheet looks like. So let me let this get out of the way, and we'll come over here. Okay, so here's the day of the week and the date and a lecture number. So we have 22 sessions together. The PowerPoint files are aligned differently during the physicals, the actual semester, fall and spring. So what you'll find on the front slide of every one of the PowerPoints, the PDF versions that I give you, is something that says lecture number whatever. That is not the same as this. This is basically day number. We're at day number 3 in the course. In fact, why don't I just call it day number and change it? So what I want you to match up here with these files that have the slides that we're covering is in this column. Which prezos are we covering? So we've covered the initial prezo today, which I've always called, sort of chapter 0. So I'll go ahead and add 0 in there. And you have the first PowerPoint to go through on your own. It's an hour-long lecture. And then next time we'll have chapter 2 live and pre-recorded 3, and then chapter 4 live and pre-recorded 5, and so on. On 3 times a week, you'll have a homework that's assigned. The homework for this one is, and I didn't combine intro and HTTP, I ended up combining the other two, do the intro Wireshark lab. And that's sitting out on the Google Drive in a folder called Wireshark Labs. I will write it down. I'm going to give you some other questions as well, but start on that now, right? Because that one's going to be due in a couple of days. It is super easy. There's always something to turn in. Make sure you read through the very end of the Wireshark Lab, and it'll have a section that says what to turn in. And you'll be asked to take screen snapshots. And because it's easy to just grab a friend's answer to this from the prior semester, I'm going to ask the TAs to make sure that when you turn in a screen dump of something, that you've got a window up that shows your U of H ID, at least shows that you're logged in, and maybe the time in the corner of the window. So what I might ask for this, for example, might be that I also have a window over here open to the side, and I'm not going to log in right now, but let's say I did, and I just manipulate this so the corner of that window is showing, so it's got my name. And if you give the TAs a reason to be suspicious, then they have free reign to ask for whatever they want, like to ask you to explain to them what's going on, or share your screen in a 5-minute WebEx with them. That's totally to be expected, right? So that's fair game. Then on Wednesday, you're going to be asked to do these labs and so forth. The presentation numbers, this is sort of a break at this point. So this is a separate section of the spreadsheet. Instead of putting it on a separate tab, I just left it here. Here are the Kuros-Ross chapters, section numbers that are covered in each one of the presentations. So the one that you'll do after class today, the recording for presentation number 1, covers sections 1.1 and 1.2 in our textbook by Kuros and Ross. And almost everything we do is going to come out of that Kuros-Ross textbook until we get to the end, near the end of the semester, and we have two extra additional things. One of them is going to be covering the fundamentals of putting digital signals on analog networks, like I talked about before. This comes from the Leon Garcia Wijaja book that's in the prior slides we showed, and that'll come out of Chapter 3. So on Prezo 24, when you come to class that day and you start seeing the slides associated with it, it's going to be from Chapter 3 of this book. So I'll have the slides for you. I'm trying to figure out if I can have a section of the book for you as well. If you find it, make sure it's the second edition. The first edition is out there readily available. So when will we do that? When will we cover this material? It's presentation 24. I come up here and I look. Here's presentation 24. It's on Friday, the 22nd of June. It's section 15. It'll be 2 hours like all lectures. We'll do both of those will be on that chapter. For example, let's see what else I got here. Section 25 is on Hamming codes, and we'll record the Hamming code one, and then we'll do the LGW one live, something like that. And I reserve the right to adjust this based on how the class is going, how things are doing. You'll notice there's a couple of places in here where we have holders, something for the prep for the midterm, and then the Section 17 says placeholder. That's just so we don't wonder, like, what chapters are we covering? No, we're taking a test that day. And we'll have the final review on the last lecture. The final exam doesn't take up a lecture time. There's separate set aside final exam dates for that. The last Monday of our class is the last day of class. Tuesday is the final. I don't like that. I'd rather have Friday before the weekend be our last lecture, in which we prepare for the final exam and give you the weekend and Monday to prepare for it. Maybe on Monday we do a study session for anybody that wants to come and practice problems, for example, and we'll record it. If we do that, we'll send out a WebEx or use the same one. And so that's something we'll talk about a little bit more, but I can't conceive of having lecture material on one day and then a final exam the next. The final is not cumulative. The final will cover material in the second half of the class. So this is like two separate courses. It's impossible to answer questions about material covered here without knowing what you learned up here. So you don't get to take a complete pass and lobotomize what you learned in the first half, but you don't need to worry about me going back and asking you questions again from these chapters. Then the last thing in this spreadsheet is some helpful links to some material that the textbook authors made available. At the end of every chapter, they have some exercises, everything from watching an HTTP GET message to learning how TCP functions, calculating Dijkstra's link state algorithm, doing some cool error correction on wireless networks, etc. And they are all located at this URL. There are also some interactive animations I mentioned earlier, the TCP things moving up and down, for example, estimating what the delay will be, how many round trips is it going to take to load an entire web page based on whether you have one type of connection or another. And so those animations are fun. Why they don't just combine it into one big list, who knows, but they're separate. They're impossible to find sometimes. And so here are the two URLs for them. They're not behind a paywall or anything like that, but they're hard to find via Google even because they've had several versions of these, and in between the versions, we've sort of radically changed our feelings about Flash and sometimes about Java, and so they've had to completely replace these before. So these are the ones that work, right? And you'll notice there's not something for every chapter here. All right, so that's what's going on with that spreadsheet, and there's a little snapshot of it here. It's in the Google Drive for you as well. Here are the TAs. We have two. Like I mentioned before, they're A players. I've had them for multiple classes, and they are going to be instrumental in helping you sort of stay on target. And like I mentioned, Syed Hassam, which everybody calls Hassam, is willing to help me figure out if this were to become someday purely online, how would we do TA office hours that way? So he's taking time out every day to sit on our call, and Monday through Thursday, Friday they're going to get the day off for that, and so plan around that. And they'll be on, and he's been on for 20 minutes already. So if you're wondering how dedicated these guys are, there's a sign right there. And he'll stay on after I leave to answer any questions that you guys have. If you also have questions for me that you need to bring up, you've got my phone number on slide 1. Send me a text and tell me you need to chat. And we don't need to have conversations just via text. I love talking. Can you tell? So phone calls are great too. You can use WhatsApp audio if you want. If I can't answer you at the time, I'll say so. Don't worry about the time changes and figuring out you'll never keep up with me. I can barely do it. And so if you need me, text me when you need me. And sometimes I'm going to surprise you by answering in the middle of the night as well. And like I mentioned, the TAs are going to alternate grading homeworks, so we don't end up swamping. I think I probably just announced that to Hassam just now. I don't think I remembered to tell him that before. Sorry about that. So you'll do Monday and Wednesday this week, or sorry, Monday and Friday this week, and Wednesday the next week, and then Monday and Friday, and then Zhang Gang will alternate. So you're not going to have 3 homeworks in the same week to grade. That just sounded like too much. And then once they come back, we can still do online office hours if you guys like them, if that worked out well for you. But they have physical office hours for the entire time, including now. So if you would rather go in and see Hassam in person, by all means, go ahead and do that. Okay, a little bit about me. Here's my LinkedIn profile. When we get done with the class, if you want to keep up, that's awesome. I split my time between Mexico and the U.S., and apparently this summer we add Germany to that list. But I commute back and forth every week, and I teach in 2 universities every week. So I'm at U of H most of the time, starting this fall, and in Mexico a good part of the time. So we'll still use the same kinds of tools, but I'll just be around a lot more. I'm a computer scientist by training, back from when we only had zeros. We didn't even have ones and zeros when I started. I know, bad joke, but a good one. And I'm retired from AT&T, where I was a senior technologist and an executive, a vice president in a career that started 30 years ago. Maybe, I don't even want to do the math. That's how scared I am. And as of 2 weeks ago, I've retired from Cisco Systems as well. So I'm just going to be doing this and developing courses, maybe a book or something like that. Who knows? So I want this to be fun for you guys. I'm very concerned that this go well for you. My commitment is exactly the same material in exactly the same way will be available to you. So a lot of my students in the past, they skip a lecture and they watch it later because they got something better to do, or maybe they stayed up watching a terrific playoff game, or they're going to the airport or something like that. I don't care, and your boss shouldn't either. If you end up with a boss that really wants to pick on you on that kind of stuff, find another job, because there's not enough of us, right? And you'll find somebody that will treat you the way you ought to be treated. That's sort of life advice that I've learned over time. So those same recordings are going to be available to you guys, and it's a pretty interesting background. Usually it's like bad hotel drapes or something. You'll see what I mean when you look at the next recording. So on that YouTube site that I mentioned, I just emailed to you guys, you'll find the lecture. I'm going to stop now. I'm going to hand things over to Hassam. And if you do need to ask or let me know about something now to kind of make sure the course is going well, paperwork you need me to sign, you need me to let me know about something unusual going on, drop me a text, take a picture of it with your phone, send it via text or WhatsApp. If I need to sign it, I'll do it and send it back. And we'll handle everything we need to remotely. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye for now. And Hassam, you want to unmute yourself, or do you want me to do it? I can't hear you. There you go. You're unmuted now.
Yes. Hey, Dr. Lang. Hello, everyone. Yes, my name is Hassam, and I'm going to be staying here. So if you have any questions or thoughts, just share with me. I'm going to be here at least for another 15 to 20 minutes.
All right. So I'm going to make you the guy on video locked in from now on. And the other thing I got to figure out how to do before I mess this up is I got to make you the presenter. And I'm going to do that. Change role to presenter, and actually I'm going to change you to host as well. So you should be up at the top now. You are, and there we go. And we're going to, with Hissam's permission, keep the recording going. So when he quits, gets done in 15 minutes or whatever, it's quitting time for him. He closes the meeting up. That's when I'll get a notice that the recording is available, and I will post it like I did the one that I've already sent to YouTube. So it'll go up on the YouTube channel. So just subscribe to that, and you'll know when those things are done. It'll usually be quick, but if I'm in the middle of a lab or running off to something like that, it may take me a little while. All right, guys, have a great evening, great morning, great day, depending on where you are. If you're me, it's about to be a great evening. Hissam, thank you again, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye, everyone. Bye.
So guys, I believe if you can hear me, as Dr. Lang just introduced me, my name is Hessam, and I'm the fifth year PhD student in the Computer Networks Lab, working with Dr. Nawali. So I've been doing this networking stuff for, let's say, 5 to 7 years for now. And yep, I'm happy to be your TA. If you have any questions, any thoughts, any problems, just you can just, yes, as you can see here, just ask us, send a message here. I guess there is a chat message here. You can just directly send it to me, or already you have my email address. Just send it to me. I promise you, I'm gonna reply at least within 2 or 3 hours when you send an email. And one more thing is, our TA office gonna be PGH 313. I'm third floor, and you know that TA office. So we're gonna be there, me and the other TA. But to make sure we don't miss you, whenever you're gonna have a plan to just stop by in our office, just send a quick email so we can. In that case, we don't miss you. Or let's say I'm just not stepping out or talking with my friends. So just send an email before, if you have a plan to just attend to the physical TA meeting. I mean, face to face. But anyway, online and email and everything, we're gonna be available, me and the other team. And for now, I guess that's it. So if you have any questions, I'm just gonna stay here. If you have any questions, problems, anything, I'm happy to help. Okay, I see a question from Christian. So let me see. Okay, I got it. So yes, there is a common question about the homeworks. The homeworks, I mean, Dr. Lang gonna post it, so you don't need the book for the homeworks. I mean, if there is a question from the book, he is going to copy the question inside the homework. So you just download the one PDF as a homework. Let's say for the homework number one, that PDF gonna include all the questions, so you don't need to have a physical book or e-book or anything. But that book is for your reference if you want to just go and, let's say, look at the textbook more detailed. But no, you don't need the book for the homeworks. I mean, the questions gonna be inside the PDF file you receive for the homework. You're gonna receive a notification. You're gonna upload the homeworks in your Google Drive. There is a folder called homeworks. You're gonna just see that homework, and inside that homework, you're gonna see a PDF. Let's say each time you have a homework, it's homework number 1, 2, 3, and etc. So yes, you don't need the book for that. And no, the questions at the end of each chapter inside the textbook, they are not the homeworks. The homeworks gonna be selected few of those. I mean, Dr. Lang gonna design few questions by himself, and also grab, or let's say borrow some questions from the textbook. But whatever he decides, he's gonna just put everything in a one PDF file and upload it on the Google Drive per homework, of course. So you don't need to no the question, but you can just always you can just go look at those questions at each chapter. That's a very good resource for practicing, especially for midterms and midterm and final. But for homeworks, no, you don't need to go through all the questions. I mean, he's gonna pick few questions and put it inside the PDF file. And let me see. There is another question I can see here. It talks about the how you can get the textbook. This one I'm not sure. It's better for you to send an email to Dr. Long about it, the textbook. I'm not sure how he can manage the homework, the textbook, how he can get the access to the textbook itself. Uh, okay, the other question about the due dates. Because this is my first semester being TA for summer course, because I usually go to the fall or semester, I mean the long semesters, I mean fall and spring. Usually we have 1 or 2 weeks for deadlines. But for this one, because they're pretty short, semester, I mean just the whole thing is 1 month. So I'm not sure exactly how he's going to manage the deadlines per homework. But let's just, I need to, again, this one also we need to ask him, because basically, okay, so the point is he is going to design the homeworks, I mean the questions, and he's going to put the deadline. I mean, assign the deadline based on how much workload is inside each homework. So he is the guy who decides. Me and the other TA, we are going to just grade the homeworks after the due date. Let's say the due date is 2 days from now. After the due date, we're gonna just go take the homeworks and just grade everything. So, but he's the guy who decides. So in that case, I guess I can send an email to him and ask, and also you guys also can send an email to him to ask. Okay, so how he's going to manage the due dates? But I mean, for each one, I guess he decides separately. I mean, based on the workload inside the homework. Maybe 1 day or 2 days. I'm not sure exactly. But we can ask. I will ask and ask him to send the email to the group and let you know about how he's going to decide about the homeworks. I mean the deadlines. So to summarize, let me try to see. Can I? Yes, let's say go through a recap of the questions and my answers. So number one. Okay, so the other question is about IDE to Wireshark lab. So basically, Wireshark, you don't in the Wireshark usually you don't do coding that much. Wireshark is a tool that you just, let's say, application you download and install on your Windows or Mac or whatever you have, and it's not basically for coding. You just use that IDE to, let's say, there are some. I mean, if you just watch some online tutorial, or if you need help, just come to the TA office. I can just show you how it works. But basically, in that Wireshark lab, if you go, he's actually have a very comprehensive material about how to use the Wireshark. But basically, over in an abstract, Wireshark is a tool you install on your system, and you can just look at the packets going through your network. That's it. And you can just log those packets as a text files, and later on you have, let's say, those text files, and you can just process those text files or take some screenshots about, okay, so but usually you don't do that much. Actually, I guess the coding is almost zero. That tool is just for monitoring the network traffic and logging the network traffic. So it's not called, I mean, we don't call it IDE basically for Wireshark. So you don't need to use anything. So the Wireshark itself is a application, so you just install. And I mean, if you go through that introduction to Wireshark, I mean, in the lab, the first lab, In the workshop, I guess it's pretty comprehensive and easy to understand tutorial. Go through and you just understand what's going on with the workshop. It's not that much a big deal. I mean, it's pretty easy to use. Just install, and there are very few commands you need to just go through them. You can just use the very nice user interface. So it's kind of piece of the cake. I mean, maybe just 10 minutes work and you're gonna be done with that one. Uh, is Wireshark a part? Okay. So, Wireshark, of course, you need it, and PyCharm is up to you. I mean, as Dr. Lang mentioned, you can just use whatever language you want for coding. But for assignments, we usually go for Python. And I mean, because you're gonna have also few computer assignments which he prefers Python. So for that one, you can just use whatever IDE you want. PyCharm is just our suggestion, but you can just use whatever you want for doing the Python scripting. PyCharm is easy to use, and already we have a tutorial about how to install it on your Windows machine and Mac machine, of course. So, but as far as I know, yes, just these two. I mean, Wireshark and PyCharm. You're gonna be these two applications are gonna be enough for the all the homeworks. I'm not sure because Dr. Lang is going to change a few materials this summer, so I'm not exactly sure. Maybe you need also something else, but for now, yes, Wireshark and PyCharm, you're gonna be fine for the homeworks and assignments. Yeah. I'm trying to contact Dr. Lang about the question you asked about the textbook, how you can get access to the textbook, because I remember he told me something about he's going to register the class for summer so you can get the copy of the book. I'm not sure. Let me see. Ask her. So guys, he replied about my question about the textbook. I'm going to type it here in there so everyone can just see it. Let me just summarize it. So yes, I answered those two questions about the textbook. It seems for the textbook you need to consider buying the first textbook. Second one he's gonna give you. The first one, the sixth edition, seems to be available online, but the latest edition has a few more chapters. And about the homeworks, as I put it here in the text messages, the chat messages, yes, you will have the deadline gonna be the same day that the other one gonna. Let's say you receive a homework on Monday, the deadline gonna be Wednesday. If you receive on Wednesday, the deadline gonna be on Friday, and if you receive the homework on Friday, the deadline gonna be the Monday. So it's kind of 2, 2, 3, something like that. So any more questions? As I said, you can always ask questions by email. Yeah, I mean, if you don't, it's something that later comes in your mind, you can just send by email. Or do you have my? Let me just put my email again here in the chat message. So, in case if you don't have this, so here is my email address. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention after the class, because this session I am doing is not mandatory. So if you want, you can just leave after because I mean the class already is done. So I'm just here to answer the questions. You don't have to stay if you don't have any questions or. So it seems everyone left. So I'm just going to stop recording and leave the room.